911 operators, what's the funniest thing you had a kid call in? I had a kid ask me if my refrigerator was working. I replied with, "Do you mean is it running?" He cussed at me and then hung up. I had a little boy Cal Ninwananito tell me he was hungry and needed breakfast. I asked him if he was alone, and he said no, his sister was watching him, but she was sleeping. I told him he should go wake his sister to have her make him breakfast. He said she is real mean and she won't be nice to me. I said okay, you stay in the house and I will take care of this. His mom was an EMT, so I knew his family. I called his grandma and had her go take care of the breakfast crisis, and his sister had no idea. His mom later called to apologize, and I just asked her to explain the general rules of 911. Edit. It should be noted the unfortunate turn of events mentioned in the comments happened years after he called. At the time of the call they were just a normal sibling pair, one who possibly wouldn't make breakfast for another, and got the cops called on them. My uncle is a dispatcher in my hometown. He always tells me the story of this 4-year-old who called 911 cause his older brother farted on him. Edit. Since this blew up I'll add a little more to the story. The kid hung up the phone a short time after he explained what happened. My uncle said he was laughing too hard and had to wait a couple extra seconds before calling the number back. The mother answered the phone and he had to explain what happened to her and to make sure everything was alright. The mother was mortified and apologized over and over. My uncle said it was a welcome moment of levity during a stressful holiday work week. I had a 6-year-old girl accidentally call 911 on a saying that her mommy and daddy were making hoopy. I had flashbacks of Family Feud and laughed so hard. I waited a few minutes and called back, and her mom tried to play it off saying they were wrapping Christmas presents. Yeah, sure lady, if your present is a new little brother or sister. I had a little one call into our center about 10 times, just so she could tell us that she loved us and appreciated us, and we are doing such a great job. Our center is pretty big, so she would get a different person almost every time. However, if she got you more than once, she would say something like, no, I already told you. I need to tell someone else. You're great, but they need to know they're great too. Okay, I love you, bye. It was all from a disconnected cell, and we weren't really getting a great phase on her location, but she stopped after about an hour, so it wasn't super concerning. Made my day. I hope she grows up and keeps that big heart of hers. We need more people like her in the world. They don't necessarily need to call 911, but the point still stands lol.
End.
Me, 911 where is the emergency? Little Mexican kid. Yeah. We need a vegetarian. Me, long pause a what? Kid, a vegetarian. Me, silence as I'm processing this kid. For my dog he's sick. Me, okay you need a veterinarian. Sorry buddy but 911 is for human emergencies. Kid, oh, okay bye. Kid had to have been like 10 to 12 years old. My dad was the chief of police when I was growing up, and I spent a lot of time at the station. When I was 4 or 5, my mom wouldn't let me do something, so I called the emergency line pre-911 days, and after the 30th police, "What is your emergency greeting?" I very sternly requested that they arrest my mother. The dispatcher recognized the address I was calling from and called my dad to tell him that I was on the emergency line and what I wanted. I got a lecture that night, but from what my dad says, they had a good laugh about it at the station. My cousin called because she was giving her lizard a bath and it went down the drain. It was like a tiny house gecko named Steve. She called 911 agreeing that Steve was drowning and had gone down the drain. By the time the dispatcher figured out Steve was a gecko, the police and fire dep were already pulling in. She was like 6 or so, and I still tease her about it. I do feel bad for Steve though. A 4-year-old called in to say that his dad took his trick-or-treat candy. Yeah, he took it, so the kid wouldn't fill his face in a single night. The dad was planning to ration it out. My older brother said he called the cops on me for something, so I called them back to say nothing was wrong and that he was lying because I was scared. My dad was pissed. On a Saturday morning about 7 AM I was sleeping in, and my 2-year Khaled one and of course he wanted breakfast. I didn't know till a sheriff was knocking on the front door doing a welfare check. I would love to have heard that conversation. My favorite call recently was from an 11-year-old kid who was walking home from school and got lost. He Khaled 9 in a panic, so I told him to stay where he was until officers arrived. We didn't have officers available for about 30 minutes, so we just spent half an hour chatting about Fortnite. I guess not exactly a funny call, but it was enjoyable. My kid was 17 months old and impossible to tie down. While I was cooking dinner he went into the study and somehow dialed 000 emergency line in Australia. I think he was trying to talk to his nana, but panicked when a stranger's voice came down the line instead. I caught him and hung up the phone, not knowing he'd actually dialed anyone. Then I went back to cooking butter chicken for dinner. 14 minutes later the police are on my doorstep. They came in urgently, looking for an old man who might have fallen down. The emergency line operator had asked several questions, but the only response she had gotten was labored, heavy breathing that she thought was an old man too injured to speak. Luckily for us, it was just sneaky and confused toddler wheezing. We figured it out, and I brought my kid out to meet the police and one of them said yeah, that'd be the perp. Look at the guilty look on his face. Funnily enough, my kid did have an expression of extreme chagrin. Possibly the first and last time he ever felt guilty for anything. Not an and one only operator, but my parents love to bring this story up, so I thought I'd share. One morning when I was about 4 or 5 I Khaled one and Ito told them that nobody in the house was dead. They wanted to speak to my parents, and I kept insisting they didn't need to because no one was dead. Eventually I hung up on them, and they called back, and got to speak to my parents, who were alive as promised. My brother called the police on me because I wouldn't let him watch The Simpsons when we were younger. Told them I was being mean to him. They called my parents back for a very interesting conversation. I love telling this story at work, so if any of my co-workers see this, they will instantly know who it is, but oh well. A couple of years back I got a call from a kid who was about 6 or 7, stating that his brother who was about the same age had hit him. This is more of a parental than a police matter, so I politely asked him if I could speak to a parent. No, was his reply. I lowered my voice an octave and said let me talk to your mom or dad. Same reply from the kid. I went into semi-angry but totally serious adult mode and firmly said, put one of your parents on the phone or I'm sending the police to 1234 Main Street. He was calling from a landline, so I had his address. He paused for a moment, and then I could hear him start vomiting in the background of the phone call out of fear. Did wind up sending the police out to chat with the young man as I was never able to speak to a parent to verify that everything was okay. He received a lecture. My mom was an in-one only operator. When telling us about her new job, she was describing to my brother and I that she got a job at the place you call 911. Next day mom's at work. My brother calls 911 just to tell mom about his day. Goodbye inbox. Too bad it's on my throwaway. To answer one of the questions, I was in 4th grade, my brother in 2nd. Not an operator, but my uncle who is an alcoholic would show up at our house growing up. Usually not a big deal, but usually had to call the police to take him back to the halfway house. One time this happened while my mom was out, so my brother called 911. When they answered hello 911, what's your emergency? My brother, who was maybe 10, answered hello, this is not an emergency. My son wondered what the SOS button near the sunroof in my BMW did while I was grabbing something in the supermarket. I came back as he was trying to explain his button pushing mistake to the emergency operator. He is 35 years old. I called the cops on my older brother when I was 6. He wouldn't let me into our room. They called back and told my parents. About 10 years ago, my preteen little sister once accidentally called 911 while calling her best friend. Her phone number, minus the area code, started with 9 and 1, and then hung up as soon as she realized her mistake without saying anything to the operator. She didn't tell anyone in the family what she had done, for fear of getting in trouble, and hoped it would just go away. This was seen as suspicious, and a police officer already driving in the area was sent to our house. It just so happens that around that same time, my mom's sister was visiting, and she was leaving. The cop arrived just as she pulled out of our driveway. My sister actually saw the cop pass just after she left and was horrified, but hoped it was just a coincidence and still didn't tell anyone. The cop decided to follow our aunt and pulled her over a block away. The mistake was figured out pretty quickly though, and he let her go without ever coming back to our house. My aunt called the house laughing as soon as she got home. Until this point my parents and me still didn't know she had even been pulled over. My sister was finally exposed, and while she was not punished she did get teased a lot by mom. I called 911 on when I was about 5 or so just to see if it would work. Naturally, an operator answered almost immediately and caught me off guard. When asked what the emergency was, all I could manage to say was my name before I quickly hung up the phone. They called back and talked to my mom, who wasn't thrilled when they asked if I was okay. I once pocket dialed 911 while playing airsoft. When I got back to my car and was able to look at my phone, I saw I had a 12-minute phone call and several missed calls from what I later found out was the local sheriff's office. Wow, the secretary was not happy. When I finally got to talk to the sheriff, he laughed it off and said it was no biggie, as it was bummed out nowhere and nothing really ever happened. Still got told to be more careful about having my phone in my pocket and not locking it before putting it away. Edit, another one. When I was 3 or 4, my dad was teaching me how to call 911. He was using an old cell phone, think old Nokia flip phones. He told me to press 911 in an emergency. Well, apparently, the phone was still able to call 911. My dad was shocked when I was pretending to talk to a dispatcher and handed the phone to him. I worked for 000, the Australian version. Kiddie calls are rare, but kinda stressful as you have to take everything seriously in case it's really. A 4-year-old called to say he couldn't go downstairs because he was scared a zombie would eat him. Turns out his dad just had a heart attack and died, and this was the only way he could think to explain it. Best was probably a little boy calling me to tell me his sister is a dumb brain. Then he called me a dumb brain too. Pro tip, if your kid does this and we call you back, please don't ignore our calls or blurt out sorry and hang up. You won't get in trouble. We just want to get verbal confirmation that we can cancel the job we just opened for you, so we are not wasting scarce resources on an emergency. So cell phones with no service can still dial 911. It's a nuisance because we can't call them back and rarely can trace them. Some people give them to their infants to play with and they end up dialing 911 over and over. One night it was so bad we sent an officer to look for the phone based off of GPS. The operator was warning the child that dialing 911 is illegal and he could get in trouble. The kid, without missing a beat, said then put some minutes on my phone beach. We kept that recording for a long time. When I was 4, I called 911 my parents for forcing me to eat fish for dinner. They promptly called back and my mom answered. Let's just say I never complained about eating fish ever again. Not an operator, but a responder. A few years back, one kid called 911 his brother not letting him play Xbox. My friend, the operator, put me in for a conference call. In the background I heard this guy shout, "Holy shit, he's taking the truck." Apparently, the parents made the kid get off his box and go outside, so the kid did the logical thing. Steal the UPS truck parked across the street. I had a kid today call in and tell me he hates me and that I'm a fooing asshole butt crack. He was probably about 6 years old. A little while age, we had 2 kids who were around 7, prank calling from an untraceable cell phone, calling us all sorts of hilarious names. At the moment it was super annoying, but now we all just laugh about it. Edit. We also get toddlers calling all the time from their parents' cell phones. They will gobble nonsense at us and hang up as soon as we ask for their mum or dad. May sound like a bother, but honestly it is so cute. My childhood best friend was trying to call my house and accidentally dialed 911 instead. When they answered she said oh shit to my surprise because I wasn't allowed to swear and hung up. When police showed up we hid because her mom had taught her police always had to take you to jail if they came and used it as a threat anytime her kids were acting up. Her mom was pulling in the driveway and the officer was knocking on the door and yelled friend's name looks like you're going to jail as she came in. Her and the officer had a pretty stern talk about using the police as threats. We heard it and our hiding place was found because of our laughing. I had a 12-year-old call because mom said she had to do her homework. Said it was child abuse. Flip side, we had a mom called to ask a deputy come to their house to make her daughter do her homework. Not the same family, BTW. I also had a lady call on a Sunday morning. She wanted a deputy to come to their farmhouse and make the ducks stop eating the fish in their pond. Apostrophe.